welcome to the Neverending Discussions. This is my offshoot of the podcast that I started, the Neverending Experiment, that I was doing on my own. I'd like to be inviting some more guests on the show, and I want to start with my friend, Omar. Omar is my cohabitant, and we've known each other for over 10 years now. And maybe he'd just like to introduce himself a little. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Omar Romero Perez. I'm originally from Mexico City, but I've been living in Canada for 20 years now. And like Kim said, we know each other for over 10 years, and we have been living together around that same time. So, yeah.
Long time with a cat and now a dog who it runs the house. We just do what the dog wants, basically.
Basically.
So, yeah. So this episode is just going to be Omar and I kind of going over our history. And my intention in the future is to get other guests on the show. And so it will be the two of us talking to other people. We're just going to go over a few things about each other and our connection and our history. So I guess, yeah, we met each other over 10 years ago, and one of our biggest interests or overlapping interests is plants and animals, I guess nature in general, but plants was the thing where neither of us were working with plants at all when we met each other, and we both took a big step back in our career to kind of reorganize and move forward in a different direction. So for me, that meant moving away from fine arts, which is what my background is in animation. And it's been around 10 years now since I finished my last animation. And
we mentioned we were going to do interviews. So for this episode, we decided we're going to have a small interview. We're going to interview each other. So right now, where she was talking about her career, that was my first question. My first question is what was your biggest achievement during your filmmaker animator career?
Okay. Yeah, my biggest achievement, I think the thing about the animation career, it started off kind of with a bang. Like my biggest award and the one that I got the most money out of was my very first film festival presentation, or I think it might have been my second, and that was at the Ottawa International Animation Festival. So I think that, well, I guess when you look at achievement, it kind of depends. Like when I made my film 2, it was sort of an intention to have fun with animation, and I called it like a love non-story because there's no story in it. It's very abstract. But the intention was kind of to have fun, and I think that other people responded to that really well. And it was loved. I mean, I did really well for a first film, especially for a student film. I know other animators were sending to festivals, and I felt like, wow, like mine's doing so much better, because I was just getting accepted into quite a lot, and I got 3 awards out of that film. But as far as like technical achievements and how I felt, I think the fall for me was more in depth. Like that made me kind of look inside myself more, and it was more of an ordeal. But that one was more difficult to watch because there's gore in it, and not everybody is into that. So it's a much darker film. But I think between the two, like those were really the ones where I guess to look at overall achievement, how I felt is just the ability to pull something together that's really, really complicated, because I like complicated things and with, different systems working together. And I think that's kind of my biggest achievement out of that. I'm able to take those skills and use them now in other areas of life. So maybe I'll ask you a question now.
Sure. Yeah.
Because I had a little bit, and my questions were not in full, complete sentences, but I think I was really curious about when you went back to Royal Roads for the environmental science. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that. But I guess my question was, what was the most, I guess, exciting or interesting in terms of what you learned about the ecosystems? It could be specifically about like on the Royal Roads campus, because I know you guys investigated those micro ecosystems there. But what was it about learning about ecosystems that was the most exciting for you?
Well, learn about ecosystem is always exciting, and how the relation about the yeah, like fungus with the roots, and in general how like there's this super uh, the biggest organism on Earth is a single fungus in North America that it's huge. It's hectares and hectares of this single organism, right? Like they have
Wow,
checked the DNA samples in different parts of the soil, and it's the same.
it's the
Like
same.
it's the same organism. So those kind of things are always fascinating. But for me, the most exciting things was actually making DNA run, like actually cut the DNA, like from bacteria, like doing the
Mm.
whole uh, well, cutting and actually yeah, well, it's called making it
Splicing?
run, like actually splice it, yeah, and actually when you can see it, the whole thing. Actually, the terms now I miss because, well, I haven't done it right. I only did it in the lab, but that was super exciting because I have seen it on TV, and I have I understood the theory, but until actually you are doing it, that's a different. Well, it give you a different perspective, and also why. Well, why DNA tests were so expensive back in the day. Now they're getting cheaper and cheaper, but still, there's it's a lot of job in the lab, right? So you have to pay someone to do a lot of work there. So with fair salaries, I expect things to like things like that to be expensive still. Like you can't. Well, maybe in the future with AI, it will actually have lab robots and all that stuff, but maybe.
Right. I guess that kind of brings me to, I guess, a different question because I know we were talked about my background, but sometimes I divide the world into like machine people and animal people, or machine people and nature people. But most of us are in between, right? But since you've gone from a machine background to more of a nature discipline, I'm curious, like what you brought from that engineering or machine automation background into the looking at biology. What was the connections there for you?
Well, the connections is also about systems. So I'm just gonna go a little bit about my background. Like I
Yeah, yeah.
study automation in college. Like well, in Mexico I studying engineering. I started in the military engineer for the school for engineers, and I was gonna be engineering communications and electronics. But then I realized the army was not for me, and I was gonna be suffering too much if I stayed there, so didn't make sense. So I started studying mechatronic engineering in Mexico, but the level it was too fast paced for me, like the test structuring. So I was not doing very well. I was understanding, but the testing I was failing. So I end up here in Canada in the college level because the technologies we don't have it, which is more hands-on, and that's how I learn. But after working, I think it was a good 8 years in the yeah, like 6 years in environmental factories. Well, factory environments, like
I
yeah,
was like,
it's
why
a different
environmental
stuff. Yeah, I
factories?
know, no.
You tried not
I
to say
wish,
factory
I wish.
settings
No, it's a factory
because
setting. Yeah,
because it
factory
sounds
environment.
like reset to factory settings.
Yeah, well,
I don't like
exactly. Well,
factory settings. So I'll change them.
that's why. Anyway, you understood me. I was working in the factory, and that's when I the company I was working on. There were some trouble with the financial thing. At the end, they end up selling the factory and stuff. But before that, I just uh, took a small sabbatical, and I was traveling for it was almost 6 months in the Pacific. Like I went to Taiwan, Philippines, Indonesia, and all around there. So
Right. So it
but
sounds like it was
when I was there, that's when I realized like, oh, I don't want to be in a factory anymore. I want to actually, um, yeah, do something for nature.
so it was
So
more the environment that you wanted to be in rather than what you were doing. Would you say that that was the
yeah,
bigger?
yeah, exactly. Because also I spent 3 months teaching English in Bali, which will be
Right.
surprising by the people who are hearing this because it's like, you are obviously not a native speaker, and actually you make a
It's
lot
all
of
relative.
mistakes. But actually, it's very good for students over there because they have to get used to a lot of accents and a lot of different people because the reason they are trying for them to get a good English level is for the tourist industry because that's how Bali gets the most of their income. So
Right.
anyway, because I was there, I saw they were having a huge problem with waste management because over the centuries they used to be they were used to eat something and just throw it in the jungle, right? Like you eat a fruit or even back in the day they have packages, but they were biodegradable packages, right? So it was very simple for people just to throw away things or even burn their garbage, right? Like there was no garbage pickup, but they were everybody has like a little container where they burn their garbage, which is horrible because now there's a lot of plastics, and the same thing, the rivers were super contaminated because that's the thing, right? Like where people were used to fruits, now they have candy, or they have wrapped, but it was easy for them just discard the wrap in the
Right.
ground, right? So
Yeah.
they had a huge problem. I read now that it's way better. Well, that was over 10 years ago, and it has get better. But that's
Right.
when my interest for environmental sciences and ecology really came from.
So it's pretty direct. Like I think that's the funny thing about the environment. When people say they don't really care about the environment, it's like when you really look at it, the environment just means everything around you. Like you're my environment, I'm your environment. Your clothes are your environment, the air around you, water. If you don't care about the environment, it means you don't care about anything because the environment just means like where you actually are and everything that surrounds you. So yeah, it was interesting. It was your direct environment around you that convinced you, hey, like this is actually important. And I had a similar realization when I was in Europe, like when I went there in 2000, and I was amazed at how much environmental destruction there was and how much trash there was.
In Europe,
Yeah, like when I was in Dublin, I this is the image I saw when I looked out the hostel window. There was a little blonde boy rolling a tire across a busy street, and behind him was the river, and there was a shopping cart floating down. And the river was completely cement canals, you know, not a natural river at all. And I was like, wow, this is from my like you know perception of things that was more of a third world image, but that was in Europe too. And I saw a lot of shopping carts and just trash around, and a lot of the forests looked like tree farms, not like real forests.
yeah, and I don't think there are any old forests anymore
There's
in
very
Europe.
little, I
And
think.
even the old forests, they are not really original old. Like they are probably from the medieval ages, which is really not an old forest. Like an old forest should be around from like
Right.
prehistoric times. Which luckily there's still some spots in North America that they still have those kind of
And I think that's the
old
thing
growth.
is that yeah, when you understand like how much of nature we still have here, you want to hold on to that, but unfortunately a lot of people don't. They want to turn it into the garbage way. I don't know. It's baffling because appreciating nature is just about appreciating your own quality of life, right? It's your environment. It's all of our environment. Would you not want to be in a nice, healthy environment and not a toxic, you know, chaotic one? I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, this is a very good segue for my second question. Like, where do you would like to live, and where have been your favorite places where you have lived?
Yeah, well, that's good question. So it's funny that, you just say like one of my favorite places or like my favorite place to go back to because I mentioned Ireland. But I actually loved Ireland. There's a lot of beauty around Ireland. Not in Dublin. I'd love to give Dublin another chance. I did not get a good view of what was there. The neighborhoods that I went to were, either not friendly or not very aesthetically pleasing. There's a very industrial feel to it, and the I realized the difference. Culture changes when it travels, right? I'm sure obviously. We could go into that more about Mexican culture here, but even like the Irish pub idea here is not at all like what I found there. I would like to go back to Ireland, give it another chance, but also enjoy the countryside because I felt this calling to go there. I had no intention to go to Ireland, but I went to the UK. I liked London a lot, but I think my biggest issue now, as far as where to live, is the big city pollution is just really unpleasant. Like I've definitely find myself more sensitive to pollution than I was when I was younger. So that would play a big role in it. I mean, I think since I've met you too, like I love Mexico. Like I would definitely be happy to spend some more time there. Maybe that would push me to improve my Spanish, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. No, no. The problem is that I usually go to Mexico City, and Mexico City is impossible for you anymore. Like it's so polluted that yeah,
It's
no,
so
you
polluted.
you
It's
got
not
sick
even as
every time you
warm.
went there.
There's
So
no beach. There's a lot that I love about Mexico City, but I'd rather go for like a couple days. It's like a weekend kind of destination, But yeah, I'd love to explore more like the Yucatan. Oaxaca was probably my favorite city. I mean, Barcelona was really nice too. I was only there for a couple days, and I wanted to go back to Spain. There's a lot of similarities. You can see like the cultural similarities. A lot of that colorfulness and friendliness is there in Spain as well.
oh yeah, no, definitely we have more in common with Spain than we have with the States or Canada.
Yeah, and there's some of that I love color, I love color. So I like countries that show that off, that have that, aesthetic, the joyousness in it. But there is a familiarity that I feel about England, and then I felt it right away when I got there. Um, and I'd love to return to France, but I think as far as like new places that I haven't been that I'd be open to going is pretty much anywhere in Central and South America. But I kind of don't feel the need to travel anywhere else. I'd go back to Japan in a heartbeat. But because everywhere is so crowded, and I feel like I've become so sensitive to that, I think I would avoid a lot of Asia.
Big cities, yeah.
Yeah, the super super like Hong Kong, I'm sure would be fun, but I just don't think I could handle the level of
Crowdness,
pollution and
yes.
chaos there. You know, I'm one of those people that's happy that the Japanese population is going down because I think it's going to improve their quality of life, and I think it'll make it easier to travel there. But where I would want to live, I don't think I'd want to live in Japan long term, just because I think I'm an introvert and it's such an introverted place that it's like hard to break through. I mean, I know a couple people that live there, like non-Japanese people that live there, and I think that you kind of get used to living in your little bubble. So yeah, but like if I had an opportunity to go there for like a year, I'd go for sure. But I wouldn't want to stay forever. But I think that yeah, it's weird because when I was young, I really thought I was going to stay in Canada, and it's been like a slow kind of shift in my mentality to just feeling more detached from Canada. And I guess France would be on the list too as a maybe. Not Paris, probably like the south of France, just because the weather's so nice there.
Yes, the Mediterranean.
So that's my list. I want to be open to like being in the right place and letting go of the desire to only be in one place also because I think the way the world is now, we kind of have to be more flexible. That there could be project based work, and I don't really know exactly what kind of work I'm going to do. I just know that I don't want to be traveling all the time, but maybe the snowbird thing will work for a little bit. But in the long run, I think I'd rather be in Europe. But I still will love spending time in Mexico, even if I'm over there. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
Have a
think that.
question for me?
So yeah, so I guess so maybe a little bit about your becoming a citizen of Canada, which you did this year. And yeah, just wondering how you feel is like because we've talked a little bit. There's been so much immigration to Canada, but not from Mexico, and there's such a high immigration from Mexico to the United States. So just wondering how you feel in that sort of position that you're kind of a minority as far as the large immigrant groups that have kind of been overrepresented and they're a little bit underrepresented. How do you feel like yeah as a Mexican living in Canada
Well,
in the context I guess of the larger migration world?
well, the numbers for Mexicans also increased a lot in the past years, and that's how the reason why they start asking for visas. Actually, it was I think it was the beginning of this year or last year, the end of last year, but that was one of the reasons, right? Because there were a lot of people coming already, so well and staying. So
Right, because
my
there was
but
also the temporary a
yeah.
lot of temporary workers.
Yeah, no. Well, they have been always temporary workers in Ontario, like the farmers. They have all from ages. They have always have a huge floating population of Mexicans coming to work in the farms.
Hmm.
But now it was well, it was the whole thing with the Trudeau opened the flood gates, and it was way too much immigration. Like
Yeah.
there was a need for workers, but not the way they did it because it was just well. The thing is that they well now it's Canada needs immigration for low level works that nobody wants to do here, and the reason nobody wants to do here is not because there are bad jobs, it's because the pay is just ridiculous for the amount of labor that you put in. But that's
Yeah.
because people it's over here is
So that's a failure
it's
of the
spoiled.
culture.
But no, no, actually not, no, no, no. It's spoiled because actually over here you have more rights to say no, I don't want to do this work or this work is unsafe, and there's a you could say there's more
Or lower.
possibilities, or there used to be that you could have more rights with your job, like oh like there was not so easy to fire people, for example, which is still it isn't that easy, because
Right.
well
Right.
laws and stuff, but other people from other countries, like the work is it's like that, right? Actually it's the conditions over here might be bad for if you already are used to this, but from the conditions that come from other countries, like over here, it's still good. I don't know if that makes sense. Like for example, people in Mexico are taking the bus 3 hours to be in a job in Mexico City, and they are making like I think they just it went just up the minimum wage, and I think it's like 500 pesos a day, which is like $50,
Wow.
which over here it's $15 an hour, right? So in no, actually I think it's like $30. Depends on the part of the city. I think it's 500 close to the border,
Mm.
but center and down, I think it's like $30 the the minimum wage for a day,
Right.
right? So you can see why there's a lot of people that come here, even if they're it's
Well, and that goes to show the imbalance of the quality of life. But I feel like that part of that has to do with the high population too. That as the population increases, the quality of life tends to decrease, and that's part of the issue with Mexico.
yes and no, not really, because we
What other
haven't had
reason is there?
an overpopulation problem.
Well,
It's just that
it's more
the
densely
city is
populated.
crowded. But again, it's only one city that is crowded from Mexico. Really, like Monterrey and Guadalajara, they are huge cities, they are good cities, and they are not as crowded as Mexico City. It's just the way the administration and the whole politics of Mexico is very centralized, and they created this nightmare of city. But that's a different
So you don't think that
subject.
poverty or the lower quality of life has anything to do with the larger
Overpopulation?
population?
No,
Okay.
not in
Well,
Mexico.
that's a difference of opinion.
It's I think again it's like the bad distribution of resources and how well the main problem with your overpopulation thing, well, not
With the theory about
well, the
that.
theory is that for economic growth there are a lot of people that they go to where the industry is, so big industrial cities are they're getting overpopulated, even, but the farms are getting less and less people, right? So that's what I'm saying, like we really don't have an overpopulation probably in Mexico because well most of the farms go to the states or most to the farmers go to the cities, right? So it's again it's a bad distribution of wealth. If people in the farm get paid as good as they could get paid in a factory, well people stay in the farm because it's nicer to stay in the with your family and actually work on a
Right. So
it's
economics,
hard
but
work.
that's what I
Farm
mean.
work is hard work. Well, it's nicer than in factory.
But the urge for economic growth goes against the quality of life too. I guess that's what I'm saying is like the economic system is encouraging a higher population while at the same time
Well,
that's discouraging people from having the quality of life that they want. But I guess that what you're saying, like the fact that farmers don't make enough money, meanwhile people working environmentally destructive jobs get higher pay, that goes for the economic system kind of everywhere. That kind of brings me to my other question, which it kind of looks at that, but I guess you're talking about the unequal distribution of resources in Mexico, but I guess that also affects the unequal distribution of resources in the whole world. So I guess that leads me to trying to think of what would a better NAFTA look like in terms of creating more equality between the three countries, between Mexico, the United States, and Canada, that would address some of that inequality? What would a better, maybe not even NAFTA, but political changes in the future that could help that? What do you think might mitigate that problem?
well, well, depends. If for in a whole North American sense, like you're going to an NAFTA
Mm-hmm.
agreement or the new one, it has a lot of inequalities still, and actually there's the well the problem with the agreement is the problem with the whole economic system that actually it only helps corporations. The corporations are the only ones that are getting rich. They're screwing the people. They're even screwing the governments because when you really think about it, the three governments are getting screwed by corporations. The corporations are
They're
they
more
have their
powerful than
hands so
governments.
deep into their pockets or their asses. They're manipulating them, right? They're just puppets, literally. Like
Money controls the show.
exactly. So corporations are the ones that are controlling the whole trade agreements. So there are a lot of unfairness for the whole three countries because at the end is the people that the workers, the one that are losing because there was a lot of factories that they moved from the states to Mexico because well it's cheaper over there. But then
Mm-hmm.
part of the agreement was like, oh, we have to bring the level of a worker in Mexico the same as a level of worker in Canada and the States. But well, that's impossible because there's a lot of other factors that we don't change. Like, well, it's just culturally and also, well, the same. The myth of the trickle economics, right? Like, oh, you give
Right.
money to the people on the top, and the people on the bottom will take. No, people on the
It
top
doesn't
always
work.
are greedy, and they take from everybody. So that's
They hold on to their wealth and they tend to want to increase it, and then they trade wealth with other wealthy people.
Exactly. So
So it just
actually,
moves, it trickles sideways to other wealthy people and not downward.
yeah. Yeah, so in theory, actually, it will be ideal, yeah, that in Mexican workers can come farm from the States to Canada, and and maybe workers from the States go to the factories in Mexico and all around, because we have to see what we are good at, right? Like it's it's
Right.
not bad that we are we're Mexico. Look at the gardeners and we are the farmers, because well, we have a green thumb. Like we know how to grow food for
Because it
everybody,
can
right?
grow.
So
Because I was thinking, well, actually, if you were to take the money equation out of there and look at it as lifestyle, it would actually make more sense for Canadian farmers to go down to Mexico for the winter and help there because you can't grow anything in Canada all winter. So why freeze here if you could just go down to Mexico? Maybe there are some that are doing that because, and I
yeah,
know there are a lot of Canadians that have moved down to Mexico that are living in Mexico. So there is a back and forth.
there is a back and forth, and
Yeah,
actually, well, it has been there because when we really think about it, the NAFTA agreement, it's almost 20 years old,
right. And that sort of changed the cultural perception.
or even more. It's actually it was in the 90s, so it's almost 30, almost
It was the 90s.
it was the 90s.
And I remember Y Tu Mama Tambien, the end of the 90s, that was
Yeah,
such a big, like, eye opener to seeing a different part of Mexican culture, the indie film,
yeah,
because that
exactly.
wasn't,
That actually they were reflecting the reality
yeah, and a
of a
more kind
certain.
of candid portrayal of Mexicans as opposed to some of the more like clean and entertaining. I don't want to say clean, but like there's a certain entertainment value, like mariachi, or you know what I mean, like that's like a presentation. And well, and I because we were talking a little bit about telenovelas yesterday too. Like I think that has increased. Well, soap operas are really big, not really Canada. Do we have a soap opera in Canada? I don't even know if we have one. It's Coronation Street. Like
But
most
that's
people watch
British.
Coronation Street. I know. I don't think we have our own soap opera. North of 60 used to be. I think that was our soap opera. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I don't think there's a. Well,
Um,
the grassy, but that's like a
Degrassi, yeah, but
teenager.
that's a teenage focused.
Yeah, a teenager.
Yeah,
Because it
that's
was as
funny.
the format as a soap opera, but it's like
We watch mostly
a
American
teenager soap opera, which
American
is
soap
weird.
operas and British soap operas. Right. But yeah, but looking at that cultural influence. Because sometimes, yeah, I think that the what you perceive of culture is often kind of influenced by larger forces, like we're saying, the corporations and the governments have more influence than
Yeah,
maybe we are
and what
aware
is
of.
really funny right now, well, funny in a certain degree is in Mexico how the narco culture and how the drug lords are a corporation. Actually, drug incorporation, it's a real thing. How they use well, they are established as well, not established a corporation per se. Maybe some of them,
Some of them,
because
because you
they laundry money through the states to the Mexico to many companies, and
hmm
they have a CEO and they have a like an organization of a big. Like, company, right? Which actually it
yeah,
is a company, it's a corporation, which is sad because what I'm saying is, yeah, all the corporations have the power, and in Mexico, the
one of those
narco,
corporations
one of
is,
those corporations is the
or
drug
more than
lords.
one. And I think just like corporations open up these nonprofits to do work that they present as charitable, even though it's just trying to change people's mind to make their product more accessible. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an NGO associated with the narcos as well, or more than
Oh
one.
yeah, no, totally. I can't remember which town that they were financing. There's
Financing.
some, yeah, giving money to for so to open clinics, right? So actually they were competing with the government to for the health sector. Like
Wow.
they were actually, and they were giving way better service than
It's a
the.
really fine line between what a gang is and what the government is. And I think that's what I learned growing up in Canada too. Like every ethnic group has gangs, and really the RCMP, previously the Northwest Mounted Police, were basically a
It's
gang.
a gang too.
They were a British gang that came and associated themselves with the Canadian government and started fighting the locals. That's what they did. So yeah, I think that pretty much any government is going to be corrupt when they start getting power. It's easy to criticize other cultures and you see their corruption, but from what I've seen, especially in the last 10, 15 years, I think corruption in Canada has skyrocketed. And I think it would be on an equal par to Mexico in not too long. So, and I've read people trying to measure the corruption level, but how do you measure that when people are purposefully conspiring and hiding and have all these secrets? How do you really trust anybody to tell the truth? And I think even, I've been going through global statistics. You always have to take that with a grain of salt too, because a lot of governments are covering things up. I think every government is covering up
Oh,
something.
totally. Yeah. Well, that's why the most, well, let's say respectable, the better governments have an independent organism that actually grade the government, right? Like, well,
Right.
in the States, it was with I can't remember what
Amnesty?
act. No, no, no,
No,
no,
not amnesty.
no, no, no. You know which act? No, the Freedom Act, or Freedom
Oh.
of Information Act.
Okay, right.
So now
Yeah.
people can actually get all the documents from classified from the government. Well, not all of them, but to a certain degree, to a certain amount. And
Right.
yeah, actually, that's what it's scary in Mexico now that the organism that is supposed to do that, the government are dissolving it because they don't want anybody to say, oh no, we're gonna make our own
Well, and
thing.
yeah,
So
as far
it's
as I'm concerned, Canada is basically like a police state. I mean, the police control what goes out to the media when it goes through them.
oh
There's
yeah,
tons of
now
stuff
in
that they don't
Facebook you can't
allow.
really share news, right?
Yeah,
Like
we can't
it's
even share news. So the censorship in Canada has definitely gone up. Meanwhile, the laws around advertising have gone down. So we're getting this low quality crap more often, and then the stuff that we need to know is being hidden.
yeah.
So it's kind of sketchy. And I think it's scarier that people don't know that and don't recognize it and don't see it happening.
No, well, right now with the whole new uh, gun law that they are building
Which gone law? I don't know.
in Canada, no, no, like yeah,
Oh, are
no,
they talking about that again?
yes, there's a new thing that actually they are gonna take a bunch of rifles from people and they are gonna send it to Ukraine.
Wow. They're going to confiscate them from Canadians? Just regular hunters? Like, I'm so confused. I
Yeah,
should look
well,
this up.
well, people that have that's the word things, right? Like, there's even a racer, they have it. So,
Right.
like the gun control here is pretty good. Like, I don't understand really what's the thing. It's just because they are
Right.
assault rifles, because they are. Well, yeah, in theory, you don't need to empty a whole cartridges to kill a bear. I
Right.
understand that, but why would they actually like take the guns from people? Actually, I think that's a little going over the
That's overboard for sure because that's
overstepping, right? Like I said, like I'm totally again like with gun control over here. I think they have a very good gun
I
control.
think it's been good. Yeah, like we
Like I like
especially
most of the people that the actions or the crimes I heard, it's these serial stabbers and people stabbing people, right? Like I never heard a
there's
guy
been
with a
way
gun.
less gun violence. It's happened, but
It's
it's like
happened and with a lot of gangs, for example. But
right.
then again, it's a very gang centric, and again, gangs don't do going with assault rifles and well, maybe they. I
No,
don't know.
and same the gang
It
violence
depends.
that I
It's
know of that happened around when I was growing up was all a hand of
yeah, no, it's
weapons
like
and
well, from
pipes
what
and
I've seen, it's
bats and stuff like
very
that.
localized, very like anyway.
Yeah, not gun violence basically. The violence was with other weapons. And obviously you can't do as much damage with other weapons. It's still frightening. But yeah, guns do cause a lot of damage. So I'm gonna have to look up that gun thing. I didn't know that. And I think that that's what happened is like Stephen Harper made the prime minister position way more powerful and way less transparent, which was the opposite of what he promised when he was campaigning. And instead of changing that, Trudeau has just been loving it, and he's been just glorifying in his own power. And you
Yeah.
know, he's still fairly popular. I mean, his
Oh no,
popularity has
well,
gone way down, but I'm amazed at the people that are still cheering him on. Like, it just blows my mind.
more than that, they are. I don't think they are cheering him on. They are just going with the liberal agenda. But you could
Right,
say like because they will be cheering any liberal leader. I think
right, right. Which I feel is sort of like the most Canadian option, and I agree with that. But that's all
because that's the thing,
theoretical.
right? Like I'm gonna cheer for Trudeau if the other options are Pouvier and
All
like
the options
although
are. I'm very disappointed in all of our main options. All five of the major people in charge now. I'm disappointed with. So yeah, I think we're getting off track a little.
yes, and actually I think that it will be a good way to end off the podcast with
I still have
the
two more
Canadian government
questions.
sucks. Eh,
I
sorry.
still have two more questions.
Oh, you still have, yeah.
Did you go through all your questions?
No, 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 no.
Okay, so bringing back to we were talking about agriculture a little bit, but I guess my question for you has to do with your goals in terms of how sustainable agriculture and your own personal lifestyle can sort of mesh, or how you see those two merging together. Because I know that you're not necessarily a like career goal focused person. I know you like to have a certain lifestyle. So I'm just wondering how the work in sustainable agriculture, how do you see that giving you the lifestyle that you want?
Oof, that's a great question because I have no idea.
Because it's like
Like,
it's
it's like,
overlapping your personal lifestyle and your career.
yeah, no, I never really think about it. Like how, like what's the because like you mentioned, I'm not really a career oriented person, so I don't really think too much ahead of. So and I plan ahead with now with these permaculture projects because that's part of the thing that the planning it's a long term plans,
Right.
and I think that's how I'm gonna be doing it, right? Like a small 5 year plans and overlapping them, trying to move around with them, and yeah, and if I can have I don't know, probably like 5 projects a year, I would say, like around the world. I think that will be a good number. Well, six, yeah, probably 2 months each in a place to.
So kind of coming back to the same project or just like moving on to new projects.
Uh, Going back and moving on, right? Like both. Like I'm gonna like starting some projects, like let's say 3 projects 1 year, next year another project and the other, and they're gonna be overlapping. And then when I finish one, I can start other. Just that I just have to be very careful, trying not to take more than I can chew, to expand too quickly or to grab too much, and I just pace myself, and I think that will be the way to go with yeah, my career, my environmental permaculture career. I think that will be like a series of small projects.
Right.
I think that's-
I guess yeah, so that kind of makes me wonder, similar to what you said, like, is there a place that that you want to be like centralized at all, or do you want to be completely nomadic?
Actually, my goal will be 100% nomadic. Like that's always have been a lifestyle that has been very um, charming or very like calling me. Like I think I have some nomad past life that I need to resolve and I need to do because I really enjoy traveling. I enjoy driving, and during my whole life I moved a lot.
Hmm.
So and even like I went from kindergarten to university. I was in 13 different schools,
Oh my gosh.
right? So
I knew you moved a bunch. I didn't know it was that many.
yeah. Well, I
Wow.
went to 3 different universities in Mexico and in
And
two here.
that's like every couple of years, every
Almost,
2 or 3 years.
almost some places they go. So. I think the longest I was in a school was 4 years.
Wow. Well, I guess mine was similar, but that's just because like here elementary school is the longest and I went to two. So that split it up, and then junior high is only 3 years and then high school is only three.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's because my mom work, and so sometimes the school was close to my mom's work. Other times was the school was closer to my grandma's house. Another was the school was closer to our house where we live. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, there was a lot of movements, and then in one I like say actually it's funny that that school where I passed it was 4 years.
Hmm.
That's when we moved the most. So in those 4 years, we live in three different houses.
Wow. And the
So
school was the stability point then.
yes, yes.
Wow.
So that's a really I forgot about that, but yeah, it's a
Yeah. But I think that does go very deep to look at like our ancestry. I think that settlement has come with real sacrifices for our own well-being. You know that there is a sense of that nomadism is in all of our ancestry, even the people that have been settled for a long time. There's
yeah.
this sense that we're animals, and so we
Oh,
migrate.
we have all the migrant. Well, we originate in Africa, and somehow we make it all the way here, right? Like
Exactly.
what? How
Yeah.
migrating? It's just walking, and actually that's one of the things that we are made for walk. Actually, that's one of the best exercises. Not even running because
Just walking.
it depends how you run, and there's a different technique so you don't fuck your knees. But in theory, you should just walk, right? A walk is a great
Yeah.
not only exercise, it's how we
That's
develop,
what
right?
that's one
Like
of
how
our
we
main human
yeah,
things.
exactly.
Working with our hands, walking,
Bipedals, yeah.
talking. Yeah. What do you think if there was like a global citizenship? If that became a thing, like that you could give up your national citizenship to become a global citizen?
I think that will be a good idea. Well,
It's sort of it's a you know blue sky thinking, but I feel like there's so many people and even families that are so international now. You can't even really say they're from one place because they've moved around so much and connected to different places.
yeah. Yeah, but then we come back to to the governments and control, right? The whole reason why we have these divisions is for control, to control the people, right? Like how
Right.
the king control their subjects in certain things. Now the government has different departments. They have municipalities, they have countries, they have
Right. And I get it. If you want to
provinces,
run a
and it's
country,
just
you got to know who's there, right? You
yeah,
got to know
no,
how many
it
people
makes
there are.
sense. It's
Right.
just that it's part of the control. So that's why I think a global thing will be very hard, unless we became an interplanetary species, and
But not for
then we will
everyone. I
be.
guess what I'm saying is that the global citizenship would be only for the people that want it.
Yeah, but again, like it's a going back. It's all about control, right? Like
Right.
who will benefit of people having all this group of people with a global passport? You say like
I guess it would be
the,
a
the, the,
different, yeah, different rules because you're following a different lifestyle.
yeah.
So they don't expect you to contribute the same kind of thing to your own country if you're not even living there most of the time.
Yeah, like for example, that would be a great idea actually if borders were less strict. Like for example, I'm pretty sure the Roma people they can be their own nomadic nation if they want it, right?
Right. I
But
guess
then
the
again,
issue,
it's
well, and I guess with all of that is that
because
without borders, people tend to all go to the same place. So they can just stampede into one area if they think that the economy is better there. And so suddenly then you have millions of people and well it's happening already, right? Like the number of people that go to the United States is higher than anywhere else. So
yeah,
the
the,
you know,
the, the only difference is that if there was an open borders and stuff, like jobs will get fa- fulfilled faster, and then well, other people will have to move somewhere else, right? Like I think people
right.
that chances of people moving around will be
That it's a
better to
flow.
fill your yeah exactly to find the best job for you. Actually, that will be a
Right. And I guess
okay,
that's the irony of having such strict border rules in the United States is just that they trap people in the country because they don't want to get in trouble. So it pushes them to become, illegal aliens and to stay there rather than to be able to come and go and maybe they would leave more easily. So
yes.
yeah, it's ironic. one of the when you look at the border thing. But I kind of see the border as sort of like a cellular membrane. Like you kind of need to be selective about what goes in and out of the cell. Otherwise, if there's too much, the cell will burst, or it'll shrivel up if there's not enough.
And that's why you have borders, and that's why you have nations. And again,
Right.
it's about controlling, right? Like controlling what go in and out, which is
Right.
actually it's natural, as you say. It's come
All
back down to a
animals have
cellular level,
territory, right? We all have
right?
all
Like,
animals have their territory. So there's an instinct in us to protect our own territory if we feel that people are taking over.
yeah, and we're tribal, right? So we organize in these cliques of like-minded people, or in this cases, oh, what we have in common is that we were born in the same town or in the same place, right? So there's a lot of also will be a good topic for them how geography pulls people.
Yeah, I've been staring at that global at the globe at the atlas, just like wow, like it's so interesting. Just imagining the flow from one place to another. We're so controlled by our geography. Those land masses really mean everything. And that's why I kind of wish we would be a lot smarter at how we talk about it, especially pretending Europe and Asia are separate continents, which is just a geographic lie, you know. But we keep feeding this lie and feeding this lie, west, east, and now it's so mixed. I mean, if you're looking at the numbers, like there's so many people from Asia and Europe, and I mean, Europe already tried to take over Asia. Like, the idea that they're somehow separate is just very bizarre, and I think it's feeding this sort of cultural naivety and blame game that's just really silly. Like, I don't really even believe in the West anymore. I don't know why we keep talking about it because it's just kind of silly. It's just Europe, you know. So yeah, I'd like to see us get smarter about how we talk about the globe because yeah, we are very controlled by those land masses.
Yeah.
And the migration out of Africa has been since before we were even human, right? It's so old. So old. Do you have any more questions?
Yes, but I think we can have it for a different occasion. I think it has been long enough. And
Well, thanks for joining me, Omar. And we will be back again when we even decided who we want our next guest to be.
yeah,
But we'll figure that out
well,
for next time.
thanks everybody for watching. And well, if you like it, subscribe. Hopefully, we'll have more videos that entertain you, and hopefully, will informative. And if you want to be interviewed, also please send us a message. Or if you want someone to be interviewed, send it to our way. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. This has been the Never Ending Discussions. Kim Anderson,
And
and
Omar David Romero. Thank
thank
you.
you. Bye
Bye.
bye.